Welcome, 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 Ubis, McTubis. We got 5 things coming at you today. It's been a while. It's taken me a while to build up to the latest batch of stuff I've had on the go. I don't know why, because I felt like I was making such progress, but either way, I'm already into my next batch after this. I did bing, 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 finish a bunch of things in a row, so it all kind of took longer than I thought, but then a whole bunch of things fell in a row. So this first video, we've got 2 TV series and 3 video games. All 3 video games were digital downloads on the Switch, and the TV series are all DVD releases. So let's start with, whoa, there goes one of them right now. Get back here, you rascal. Okay, first thing up, The Challenge of the Gobots, Volume 1. Now, I reviewed a DVD set from the Gobots maybe a couple years ago, maybe more. The Gobots was a TV series that started in 1984 to go in conjunction with was it Hasbro? It must have been Hasbro's toy line, the Gobots. These little, they're like the poor man's Transformers, basically, is what the Gobots were. The toys weren't as good, the cartoon wasn't as good, but kids still loved it anyways, right? So the DV set I reviewed last time was the 5-episode miniseries that kind of began the cartoon series, and then after that, season 1 began after that 5-episode miniseries. So the first DVD set was just those 5 episodes from the miniseries. In this volume 1 basically is the first half of the remaining episodes. There's 65 total episodes in the Gobots cartoon series. So the first 5 was the miniseries. This volume 1 picks up the next 30 episodes. So from episode 6 to episode 35. And then volume 2 will finish off the rest of the 30 episodes from the end of the series. So Gobots, I think the story behind the whole thing was that there's this planet called Gobotron, and years and years and years ago, there were these living, breathing beings that lived on the planet called Go beings, and some sort of war or strife or whatever came to Gobotron, and in order to save the race, they had to kind of start working in these like mechanical modifications to their body, right? And eventually it morphed over the years, kind of like evolution. These living, breathing beings that began as Go beings turned into Gobots, fully mechanical but thinking, sentient beings that could transform into alternate modes, just like the Transformers. So these 30 episodes, I think it's a 4-disc series. 1, 2, 3, 3-disc series. That contains the 30 episodes, and it's the standard kind of cartoon format. The renegades, the bad guys, led by Psykill, who transforms into a motorcycle, are always at odds with the oh god, what are the good guys called? The Guardians, led by Leader 1, who turns into like an F-14 Tomcat or something like that. So it's consistently the renegades going about trying to gain power, subjugate the Earth and all of its citizens for their own gain, and the Guardians are always having to put their plans down. Now, it just doesn't stay on Earth. They go to Gobotron sometimes. They're in all sorts of different outer space settings. They're on different planets that have other types of alien races and stuff like that. So it's not just limited to Earth. It's kind of all over the place. And it's the standard kind of things, right? Like the renegades align themselves with like a mad scientist from planet Earth, some human that's a whack job, and of course the whack job regrets it afterwards when he realizes, oh, the bad guys aren't gonna keep me safe after they have their way with me and get what they need from me, right? Like, I'm expendable. So then the Guardians have to bail him out and save the day. One episode, actually, I think it was a 2 or 3-parter, an alien race of like these insectoid type beings invade planet Earth, and they're really hard to defeat. So the Guardians and the Renegades have to team up to try and defeat them. So it's the standard kind of storylines that cartoons of the time kind of used, sort of thing. So the series was done by Hanna-Barbera. So if you've ever watched Hanna-Barbera cartoons from back in the 70s and 80s, you'll know what I mean when when I say they have a distinct animation look and sound and music. Like if a Hanna-Barbera cartoon you've never seen before comes on the screen, you can go, oh, that's a Hanna-Barbera production, right? They were very, very, um, they're good quality, but very distinctive in every aspect of how they produce a show and present a show to its audience. So I was a big fan of the GoBots as a kid. Um, I had lots of the toys. It was, like I said, it was a poor man's Transformers. So even though Transformers and G.I. Joe and stuff like that were the pinnacle of 80s cartoons and are still the pinnacle of cartoons, in my opinion, there were so many other good cartoons in the 80s that just fell short just because those other ones were so good. And GoBots is one of those, right? It was still worth watching. It was still a lot of fun. But when you're going up against that kind of competition, you kind of get lost in the shuffle, right? So what I liked about getting into season one after the miniseries too is that it started introducing a lot of new characters, right? Like one of my favorite GoBots was it was a female named Pathfinder, and she turned into kind of this like kind of UFO spaceship kind of thing. And I loved the way her face looked with the one red eye band. Her coloring was like a dark like army kind of green. She was just a really neat character. And then some of the mad scientists on the GoBot side were like turned into like Porsche 911s. Like there's a lot of cool things. A big rig Guardian that just turned into this big like Peterbilt or Mack truck, right? Like a lot of cool characters entered the fray and kind of fleshed the show out a little bit, right? So that's what we got to see versus the first opening mini series. It was more the main characters, right? And then they kind of filled it out as they went on. So definitely worth a watch if you love 80s cartoons. If you don't, it's not for you. The other TV series, and we were working on this for a super long time. I don't remember how long ago I bought this, but it is Married with Children, the complete series. I literally bought this at Costco. Well, I haven't been to Costco since before the pandemic, so it was at least, 3 or 4 years ago, but I think it was even longer. I think it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. They had this all 262 episodes from 11 seasons for like literally $11.99. I was like, it's my favorite show. Like, and I was like, oh, the box set. Oh, I wonder how much that's going to be. Like $70, $12. I was like, of course, I should probably get two just to keep one wrapped, But I didn't. I just got this. We just finished watching it. If you're not familiar with Married with Children, it debuted on Fox in 1987, ran for 11 seasons through 1997, and it features a family that is unlike any other. In the Chicago area is where this took place. You got Al Bundy, the head of the household. You got Peg Bundy, his wife, and you got their two kids, Kelly and Bud. Now, Al is a women's shoe salesman who thought his life was going places when he was a high school football star at Polk. And he ended up marrying Peg, and she got pregnant with Kelly, their daughter, and basically she's useless. She doesn't work, she doesn't cook, she doesn't clean. She lies on the couch and eats bonbons and watches Oprah all day long. Kelly is a super hot daughter of theirs. She's super hot, but super dumb and super slutty. She's the ideal woman, right? Oh, don't cancel me. And then Bud is the kind of, he's smart, but he's also kind of sleazy and dirty. And he's always at odds with Kelly. The two of them are like oil and water, right? So it's just basically the adventures of the Bundy family as they just go through their daily life, and they're all so miserable, and they're highs and lows, but mostly lows. And it's funny, what I like about the Bundys is that they all hate each other, right? Or that's what it seems like. But whenever somebody from outside comes in and attacks one of them or whatever, it's like they band together, and then it's like, whoa, Bundy, right? And this show, when it first came out in 1987, it was one of those shows that was like so controversial because the humor in it is just like, it's sexual, it's head on. Like, it's like men making fun of women, women making fun of men, everybody basically making fun of everybody and pointing fingers and just kind of being kind of realistic in a way, right? So if this show came out these days, it would totally offend 90% of the population, the 90% of the population that have gone so far off the deep end where you can't even disagree with somebody about some trivial matter, and it's like, oh, you're an asshole, you're canceled because you're an asshole and you don't agree with me, right? Like that's where the world has gone. We need more shows like this to come back and show that, hey, it's okay to laugh at yourself, it's okay to make fun of each other, it's okay to have a difference in opinion and beliefs that may not jive with everybody else's, right? But we're not allowed to do that anymore. The world's too safe, yet it's never been more dangerous, right? Like, it's ridiculous. But anyways, I got off on another side tirade about the state of the world these days. So, yeah, when I grew up, this was my favorite show. Back in the days of cable, I'd watch it like 4 times a night, like during dinner. Like it would be on like Omni TV at like 6, and then somewhere else at 6:30, and then 7 and 7:30. Like I just flipped between the channels. I knew where I was going, and I would just watch it religiously, sort of thing. So it was really cool to watch the whole thing in its entirety, because I know I'd seen, if not all, most of the episodes of Married with Children, but you never know how it all fits together. You never know. One night you're watching something from season 11, the next night you're watching something from season 1. It's nice to watch them all in a row and get that continuity and see how the series begins and how it ends, and everything that happens in between. So if you like kind of dirty, raunchy, stupid shows and you've never watched Married with Children, I recommend giving it a try. Now, over to video games. I downloaded a bunch of games for my Switch over the last number of months. 3 of them we're going to talk about here. And the first is called The Takeover. The Takeover is a newer game released in 2020, and it is like, it's a side-scrolling beat 'em up that is like, it pays homage to like, Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Bad Dudes, Double Dragon, those kind of side-scrolling beat 'em up things that oftentimes are multiplayer, right? So they did a really good job. The story behind it is that I think the city is called Steelhaven, and you control a guy. I think his name is Ethan, and he's married to this girl named Megan, and then he has a cousin or a brother or something like that named, I think his name is Connor. So those are the 3 playable characters you can use, and I think you can play 3-player. You can for sure play 2-player, but I think you can also play 3-player. So the story behind it is that there's always been gangs and criminal activity in Steelhaven, but it's all been their own little factions and sectors of the city and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, they've all organized and kind of consolidated and all gone ahead together with one purpose. And so Steelhaven is being brought to its knees by this real spike in organized crime. And to make matters worse, whoever's behind this whole thing has kidnapped Ethan. Is it Ethan? I may be wrong on that. It's something like that. And Megan's adopted daughter. So they're like, okay, first of all, the city's shit, but they also took our daughter. So let's go kick some ass, right? So then you just take to the streets. You fight through 22 different levels, I think it is, to reach the end, find out who's done this to you, and then end the game. So, and when you end the game, you get this choice whether to finish this person that created all this mess, or to spare her. And oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said her. And depending on what you do, it's the wrong or right ending. And let's just say, when we first played through, I chose wrong. No mercy, right? So the visuals behind this game, it presents like an arcade game, because in arcade games, when you had those types of games, the characters were always really big and tall and big, and huge, and they took up a lot of the screen. Whereas when you get to like a console version of that kind of game, the characters were always shrunk down. Everything was a bit smaller and stuff like that. So this Takeover game, it kind of captures that whole arcade feel in essence to it, with the bigger characters and the kind of more animated kind of the way everybody moves and stuff like that. And it's also got that classic arcade stuff where a lot of different things you can use as weapons. Things get broken, things get dropped, and you can pick them up and bash your enemies with them. And the game is just it looks so sharp. It's really, really neat looking, and it controls like magic too. So everything about this game is just fantastic. If you like that genre of game, you will not be dissatisfied with the Takeover, and yeah, and it's not that difficult too. It's got some difficult parts. Some of the bosses can be a bit tricky, but overall it's pretty manageable to beat if you go at it. So very, very much enjoyed this game. The next one, another digital download on the Switch, is a game that was developed in 2017 and I think only came to consoles in 2019, and it is called Super Blood Hockey. Basically, what they did for Super Blood Hockey was take ice hockey from the NES. It's a game that was, I don't know if it was a launch title for the NES back in '85 or '86 or whenever it came out, but it was one of the earliest games, and it was a really interesting game because it wasn't based on the NHL teams. It was more based on like world teams, so you could control Canada, US, Russia. Poland was in there. There's a couple teams that were like, oh, that's weird. And I think there was only like 6 or 8 of them in there. Finland was in there, or were they? Sweden. Yeah, but anyways, it was more world teams, and you could pick the different size of your player. There was like the skinny, tall, fast guy, the medium guy that was a little bit good at everything, and then there was the big fat guy who was like, we called him pork and beans. He was just the guy that was gonna like rough people up, right? So there were 4 skaters and a goalie per side. You got to choose your 4 guys however you wanted to lay them out in terms of their types of players, and then you just play 3 periods and see who won. It was very basic, very cartoonish, but a ton of fun. And there was a code you could input. I forget what it is, but we called it the bouncy puck code. So you would like make sure you had a pork and beans on your team, and you would just tee up at massive slap shot, full power, and then the puck would just, it had super elasticity, so it would just bounce off the boards and everything around the ice surface until somebody touched it. So you'd often slap a puck from your own end down to the other end, and it would end up bouncing around, bouncing around. Eventually you could come back and score on your own net. Like, it was so much fun. It was ridiculous. So this Super Blood Hockey game was based on that original ice hockey platform. Whoever developed it just kind of updated it, changed it. And the thing that it obviously looks a little bit different in terms of the teams and the coloring and stuff like that, but it's basically ice hockey. But what they did is they added a franchise mode, which basically you control the owner of this team, and you get to pick your nation you want to represent, whatever, and you go to the Super Blood Hockey office and go, I'd like to enter a team. Oh, you don't have enough money, we're going to take your kidney from you. So they literally, like, you're on the operating table, they take your kidney, and it's like, okay, here's your team. Here's your base of operations. All of your teammates are will be inmates from the prison. So just look through the book of prisoners and pick which ones you want, pay for them, and bring them into your facility. So it's so funny. So you have this big facility that's got like a medical room, like an infirmary, where guys who get injured go and lie in beds until they're healthy again. You have a weight room where you can tell your guys go to train, so they go on the treadmill, that improves their skating. They hit the punching bags, that improves their fighting. They hit the weights, that improves their power. And then there's also a kitchen where you can put them on a diet where if they're overweight or whatever, you can up their however much they're eating. And everything costs money too. The food, the infirmary, everything costs money. And then there's the showers where you can send them after a game to go to the showers, which heals their injuries. So you have your office, and that's where you look at the schedule and play your games, manage your team, pick new players, because you can have fatalities. I had 3 different players injured and die because of different traumas they took to their testicles. Yes, brutally warped testicles is how one guy died, and I forget how the other 2 were, but they were all testicle injuries. I had 4 fatalities total, 3 of them being nuts. Yeah, so then you just kind of manage your team, and then when it's game day, you go and you play a team, and if you win, you get a big pot bonus, so your money grows, and then you can, buy new players, because it's always good to have backup players, even though you have the cost of feeding them and whatever. When you have a fatality, you have no choice but to buy a new player and insert him into the lineup. So, and then you just go through a season, you play all your exhibition games or your regular season games, and then it goes to the playoffs, and yeah, you just go through, win the championship, and you can just keep going season by season because it is a franchise mode. So I just found this this take on hockey so refreshing because it was just so wacky, you know, like you're you're getting your kidney taken out, and then all your your team members are inmates, and then somebody died, right? Like it was just such a really fresh and weird take on a hockey game, and it was so cheap, but it's so fun. It was one of those games where I just couldn't wait to play it every day, right? So if you love hockey games, it's a must. If you love just goofy games, even if you're not a big fan of sports, it's kind of one of those sports games that's, yeah, it's a sports game, but it's also not. It's got some interesting sidebars to it and stuff. Um, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and I probably will eventually get back and play through another season just because you know, it is that fun, right? So very much recommend that game. Now, the last game of this batch that was downloaded to my Switch is called, wait a minute, which one is it? Huh. I'm forgetting which one it is. Ah, how could I forget this? It is something it came up in no, it was an email Nintendo sent me with like 2-player games that are fun, and we love 2-player games because me and James can both play. So I went in, and there weren't that many games under the 2-player list, but one of them grabbed my attention right away because I was like, how did they make a game based on this franchise and I don't know about it yet, right? So the game in question is called Jay and Silent Bob Mall Brawl. That's right, there's a video game based on the Mallrats franchise, the Mallrats movie, which, if you've never seen Mallrats, it is easily Kevin Smith's best movie, at least in my humble opinion. I watch that thing every year, sometimes multiple times. It is so funny and so brilliant. You just can't go wrong watching that movie. So basically, Jay and Silent Bob Mall Brawl is based on the Mallrats movie. It takes place after the events of the movie, like right after. So Jay and Silent Bob, after causing all that mayhem and helping Brody and TS sabotage Mr. Svenning's dating game show, Jay and Silent Bob are in the mall, but they got to get the hell out. They don't want to get caught by the security guard LaForce and be brought in. So basically, this game tells the tale of their escape from the mall and back to the quick stop, where they hang out all the time. So there's 9 total levels, and obviously you can play 2-player with Jay and Silent Bob. Each one of them has their own special attack where if you get a long enough combo, they will execute it. So yeah, it's just patrons of the mall you run into that are after you, whether it's security guards or just mall employees or whatever. Each level you work your way through some part of the mall on your way to getting out of it, and the first level picks up right on the set of Truth or Date, the game show, and eventually level 9 you fight your way to the quick stop. So there are bosses in a lot of the levels, not all. You face off against, the first level is obviously LaForce, the security guard that's in the movie. Then you, in the bathroom at the end of one level, you actually fight like literally a shit monster. One of them, you face off against a hockey player that he's shooting like air hockey kind of pucks at you. You got to bring him down. If you've ever seen Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, that movie, you'll know that Mark Hamill made a cameo in that movie playing the villain Cockknocker, and you have to face off against Cockknocker in the game. He's one of the bosses. And then the ultimate boss is at the end of the level. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's bringing back a couple characters from the Clerks franchise that you'll get to square off against. So it's just, the game very much looks and plays like River City Ransom. It's really based, got a really solid representation there with that game, but it's, you know, Double Dragon, that sort of thing, Renegade, like it's got that kind of feel and vibe to it. The game's not perfect. The controls can be a bit touchy sometimes. But overall, everything on it is presented really well, controls pretty well. It's just a really solid game all around. Nowhere near the level of the Takeover, but it's still a really fun, solid game. And considering it's based on Mallrats, like I never ever thought I would have a Kevin Smith video game based on one of his movies, let alone my favorite one, right? So this was a really surprise, cool game to get, and we enjoyed playing through it very much because I've obviously made James watch a lot of Kevin Smith movies, but mostly Mallrats because it's amazing. So I was very happy to add that to my collection. So now I've already got a couple things in the bag for our next video. Whether the other things are going to fall that quickly that I'll be back in the very near future, I don't know. But you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll be back. Until then. Meow.